They always take a snapshot of the very first thing that you're doing, and usually I just look like this. So this time I decided I was going to go like this. Because that's the first thing. You can upload a picture for the beginning, but I don't know how to do that, so I haven't. A new version, install on quit. Don't need that right now. Every time a new version of Nicecast comes out, I have to then install like all of the plugins again. It's a huge pain in the ass. All right, let's start the broadcast. Broadcast has begun. And bumper music in 3, 2. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are coming to you live on YouTube.com and streaming into your eardrums via podcast on iTunes and all around the world. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/soberhappyhour. Email us, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @soberhappyhour. And when you go to the Facebooks, make sure that you like us, tell your friends, and subscribe on YouTube. There's a button right there. And what else is there? Oh, if you go to the podcast page in your favorite podcast application, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast and then rate and review the podcast. So that's a mixed up version of the new intro that I've been trying to figure out since we left Radio Valencia, and it's still a hot mess, but I'm doing my best. And with me, as always, my two very good friends, Chaz and Robinson. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Well, it is nice to have you back. And Robinson,
Yes.
it is either sunset in Vietnam and the lovely four-pane window behind you is displaying the most gorgeous polluted red sky I've ever seen, or we are looking at a lovely swatch of Venetian plaster. Which one is it?
That is neither. There's a nuclear holocaust going on in the country right now.
Like, it really does look like a window, and that
Yeah, it
and the
does,
sky
huh?
is red. It's creepy.
Okay. So yeah, this is the Venetian plaster sample that I've been working on just the last couple of days.
I like it.
And
It's hard to get the actual, like, what it looks like in person. It does not look like on video, so it's hard to really appreciate how gorgeous it looks from the video, because you get all the depth and different dimensions of it when you're in person by just moving your face a few inches to either side. You get all the different colors and the shine and the burnishing and all that, but it's an interesting color. It's kind of red, kind of brick, kind of pink, and I could see that if that were the entire wall behind you, it would be very cool looking.
well, I've been getting a lot of requests for red, and there's there's so many different types of red, and I like to use at least two, if not three different tones of a color when I'm doing something like this. So I started out with a dark pink and put a finish of like a brick red, or a, not brick, but like a sienna. No, terracotta. That's what I'm looking for. Terracotta red.
I can see that. Terracotta's kind of orange.
It's then I guess this would be more of a brick. But what they gave me for the color was, they called it terracotta, and it looks more. I think I added some green and blue to it to give it more richness.
The one in the upper right-hand corner looks the most like terracotta.
That has a lot of gold. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the most favorite. The two top ones, I think. 'Cause this one has no topping, just polished or just burnished, and this one has like a gold finish.
See, and I like the two on the right, top and bottom on the right. Yeah, those two.
Yeah. This
Those are
is
my
gold and
favorites.
silver. Yeah. This is my least favorite one here.
It just looks like paint from here.
But
Anyway, well,
normally I cut it up into 4 pieces, but I think I'm going to leave this one together and put a
yeah,
frame on it and call it art.
I love it. You call it the nuclear holocaust window.
Okay.
So last week I was hoping we would get to do the show, but it turned out that it didn't work out because last week our sitting president was in Vietnam, and it was a big deal, and he was in both Saigon and Hanoi.
Oh.
And so no matter where you were, he was going to be there. Did you even know that he was there? Was it a big deal where you were, or did nobody even notice?
It was a big deal, and everybody was telling me about it, and why am I not like present and participating in this great event?
Because he's your president, and
And
who
in
cares?
response to that, I posted on YouTube. I don't know if I did it on YouTube, but on my Yalo, which is the Vietnamese telephone version of YouTube, a video called "Why Donald Trump is Winning."
Oh God.
And it shows how fucking stupid and retarded all of the politics are right now.
And the people.
And yes, the people running and the people voting and
Yep.
the stupid, simple but stupid tactics that people like Trump are using to gain attention and
Well,
gain
yeah.
momentum.
When you act like a 5-year-old and you give everyone a nickname and you're calling a female senator Pocahontas because she says she has Native American descendants, but because she looks white, Donald Trump decided that she's a liar. And I mean, he might as well get up on stage and, say that he should be president because Hillary Clinton is a doo-doo head, right? This is how juvenile the whole process has become. It's embarrassing, actually. Like, it is
And
embarrassing.
it's the juvenile-minded people that are voting for him.
Right.
And
But
also the juvenile-minded people who are reacting negatively by
Yeah.
creating violence.
Well,
and the whole goddamn country is
it's insane.
acting like children. And
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
So
and
I
we
had to
thought it
explain
was
to people
obnoxious
here,
last time.
Say that again?
We thought the process became unbearable and obnoxious the last 2 times. And
Yes,
we're not even there yet. And this year takes the cake by 100 miles. It's absolutely absurd.
Yes. And I'm very glad that I left the U.S. when
Yeah.
I did.
I wish I had to. So Chaz,
Yes.
you have you had anything exciting going on lately?
I went to Boston and
Boston?
Yes.
Boston.
It was awesome. It was my first time being there. It was for a psych rehab conference, and it was just one of the coolest experiences in a long time that I've had. I love going to conferences. I love giving presentations. It was.
Did you
Yeah,
get
it's
to
fun.
present?
Yes, I did.
Really?
hmm
Wow. How many people were in attendance?
In our session, there was probably about 20 or 30, but in the whole huge thing, there was probably over 1,000.
Cool.
Yeah.
Boston Chassamoosets.
Yep. And I took in a game at Fenway. It was pretty
Nice.
damn awesome. The Sox won.
Even better.
I mean, it's not as big as Chase Field, but it seems bigger.
Well, and the Red Sox are doing halfway decent this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And which is common. I mean, they're always good. But I've never been to Boston. I've never been to Massachusetts at all. But going to those really old, I guess, historic ballparks
Mm-hmm.
is pretty cool because Chase Field here in Phoenix is actually considered one of the oldest and most run down of all of the modern baseball stadiums in the major leagues. And
Really?
yeah, and that's really kind of mind-boggling because I go there and I think, wow, this place is really nice. So they want to end their contract early with the city of Phoenix. They want to force the city to let them build a new ballpark somewhere else and waste hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars because I mean we essentially paid to pay for that ballpark, however many 15 years ago or whatever. And because they say that it's out of date and run down and shitty compared to the new ones.
I
And
mean,
that
I
blows
work
my mind.
I work right next to it, and yeah, it looks pretty good to
Yeah,
me. I
it's
mean, it
got that
looks pretty damn
fancy
good.
roof. It's got good amenities. There's a lot of seating. It's not cramped. There's plenty of parking. Like, what do you need? You need a better video screen. You know, you need weird shit like having a swimming pool in the outfield isn't enough weird shit for people.
It's all about keeping your budget high.
Yeah.
Every time any kind of organization or some nonprofit, something or other, every year, like I knew this guy who worked at the Dorothy Chancellor Pavilion,
Okay.
and every year they would take all of their sound equipment and hide it in the basement and buy new sound equipment so that they could keep their budget high. The higher their budget was, the more donations they would get. And
Well,
they had a basement full of sound equipment and grand pianos, like hundreds of them.
wow.
And this kid he wanted to be a DJ, so he asked his Aunt Dorothy,
Huh.
who actually was his aunt, um, or I guess not, I don't even know if she's still alive, but whoever it was in charge was his aunt, and she said, yeah, go help yourself. So he ended up with the most awesome sound system.
I bet.
Yeah.
But what's great about the Diamondbacks ballpark is that because it's a little bit older, you don't have to spend $200 for a ticket and then $15 for a hot dog and $20 for a beer. Things are reasonable. You can buy things. They have a value menu, and you can get a small hot dog for $1.50 at a ballpark. You can get a seat for $18 in the upper decks and watch the game. You can get a seat for $40, and it comes with unlimited hot dogs, drinks, and popcorn. And if you want to throw your birthday party, if you're a kid, because Peyton wanted to do this and we had no idea what it would cost, so we looked into it one year. There's a swimming pool, a big giant swimming pool in the outfield, and you can rent it, and you can have a party there. And businesses usually do it. Not a lot of kids or families do it, but for like $1,000 a ticket, you get the swimming pool, you get other whatever amenities and food and whatnot. They celebrate it with you, but it's like $1,000 a piece just to be able to swim in a pool at a ballpark in front of 20,000 people.
Are you doing this during the baseball game?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So it's pretty cool. But,
Interesting.
I mean, if you have 10 friends you want to invite, now you just spent 10 grand on a birthday party. So rich people, I'm sure they do it. Anyway, so we took last week off. We are here now. We are back. The Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast back in your ears. We've gotten some really good, I was going to say great, but I'm going to say good. I'm going to keep it humble. Some really good feedback from the last couple of episodes. I think people are enjoying the shorter format. It's a little bit easier to digest an hour and 20 minutes than it is 2 full hours. And it keeps the conversation rolling. We haven't always had to do the middle musical interlude in the middle, which has been nice. And I think we've had some topics lately that have been interesting to people. And talking about the different drugs specifically, we've gotten some really good feedback that they like us getting into a non-biased, non-political, multifaceted conversation about drug use and drug abuse, rather than getting up on a soapbox and talking about, a one-sided recovery 12-step view of things. So last show, we talked about methadone and Narcan, or naloxone, as it were, and we got quite a few people responding back saying, thank you. Thank you for not vilifying these treatment options, because too many people would rather almost, and if you think of it this way, it makes more sense, but they would rather someone white knuckle it through recovery, inevitably end up relapsing by going cold turkey off heroin or prescription pain meds than they would see somebody get on a methadone or naloxone treatment program because it takes too long and they're not off the drugs. And we talked about that on the last show, where people will tell you, we read online many articles from professionals that say a methadone treatment that is less than 1 year in length is going to fail. The numbers are staggering. 90% if you do not stick with one of these, and I would refer to it almost as cessation and weaning off of these drugs that occupy these opiate receptors. If you just quit, it's way too easy to just get back on the shit, and then you're never going to quit a second time or a third time or a fourth time. I mean, you're probably not even going to try to quit the second time. And you're certainly not going to try the third time because you know how miserable and awful it is.
But I want to say that I think that for some people, not for everyone, but for some people, there are benefits for going cold turkey. When you go the hard route and you learn how much pain you have to go through, that alone will keep some people from ever wanting to touch it again because they don't want to have to go through that relapse again.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I wish that I could agree with you. But speaking from experience, that wasn't enough for me and isn't enough for literally 90+% of people who kick opiates cold turkey. Now, depending upon the length and severity of your addiction and your tolerance for withdrawal symptoms, I knew how fucking miserable it was to get off the drugs. And it didn't keep me away for more than a year. Because I knew when I got back into it that the idea of getting back off of it was just never going to happen because I was not going to put myself through that for a second time, no matter what. So I get what you're saying. I respectfully disagree because, and I wish that that were true for more than 8% of people. Because I agree, once you figure it out and you kick that shit cold turkey and you go through that hell, I wish that people would just stay away from it. Because it's funny, most things in your life, and that's not even that true, what I was about to just say. Like, it's similar for extreme sports guys. They get on a dirt bike and they do motocross and they get into an accident and they go through 6 months of rehab and they almost die and they break 15 bones, and then you see them 6 months later get right back on the bike.
Yeah, they can't wait to get out of the hospital so they can get back on the bike or back on the surfboard, or like the girl in Hawaii who she was a 13-year-old competitive surfer. She got attacked by a shark. It ate her fucking arm. She only has one arm now, and the whole time she was in the hospital, all she could think was, I can't wait to get back out on the water.
So is that an addiction?
I'd say it's more of an obsession.
Okay, what's the difference?
An obsession doesn't necessarily take over your life and ruin it.
Unless the shark came back to finish it off.
Well, that's a risk.
An obsession can certainly probably get you into legal issues. Like you think of an obsessed fan, or like, you know, having obsessions over, I don't know, just anything can. Just like with an addiction. Yeah, just like how
obsessions can get you thrown in jail or a disease or something.
Yeah, and you know, addictions really, it's like the whole part of addiction about using is when it starts to impact your life. And certainly obsessions can take away from all the other things in your life, like your work, your family, your friends, all that. So yeah, I'd say that they're different, but the effects are. I think you could give up an obsession a lot easier than you could an addiction.
There are some benefits to obsessions too.
While you were just talking about this, I had a thought, and that would be that it's kind of like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. It's kind of like an addiction.
Is a square a rectangle?
Yes, because it has four parallel sides. But a rectangle is not a square because a square has 4 equal parallel sides. So an obsession is not an addiction, but perhaps an addiction is an obsession.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, but that wouldn't account. So I would say that that's maybe the case only in sometimes.
I'd say when it begins to impact your life negatively, it becomes an addiction.
Yeah, and I would say, like, for instance, folks who are addicted to opioids, who got addicted because of, you know, going into surgery and being prescribed shit that's way too powerful, and they get hooked on it. You know, they're not obsessed in any way with it. They'd love to be free of it, but they're addicted.
Okay, that's fair. True. But usually, that process of fiending for it, that needing it, the thinking about it constantly, that's an obsession, is it not?
I don't think it's the same for some of those folks who are, you know, who got addicted pretty much by accident.
I mean, we all got addicted by accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the hardest part, right? That's the hardest
except for the lady
part.
who won the lottery and said, what am I going to do with all this money? I think I'll become a heroin addict. Yes, that'll be my goal.
But even those people probably weren't thinking that they would become an addict. They just thought, fuck it, I got all the money in the world. I'm going to do a bunch of heroin and I have enough money to pay for treatment if I get addicted. I mean, that's the hardest part because I deal with people all the time. And if you were to take those two different classes of addict, the addict by circumstance, I was prescribed these drugs from my doctor and I took them for months and months, and they're very powerful, and I built up a tolerance, and they started prescribing me more and more powerful drugs so that I wouldn't withdraw to help me with my chronic pain. Okay? You take those people, they're class 1, and then you take I started taking Vicodin in college because it was part of my partying, and then recreational users that turned into oxy, that turned into heroin. And what's funny, in a disgusting, funny sort of way, is that you literally have people who will look at those two individuals and they will be treated totally differently. One is an addict of circumstance and we feel bad for them and we want to do whatever we can to help them. The other was an addict by, quote, choice, and therefore there is a defect there. You are a loser and don't deserve that help.
I like to think of the people in the recreational category as self-prescribing. When you start, you're prescribing this medication to yourself to alleviate some boredom in your life or to alleviate your loneliness in your life or to alleviate the lack of acceptance amongst your peers in your life. We don't just do it because we want to. Most people don't do it just because they want to do scientific experiments. Some do.
Sure.
Some do, and they are scientists. It's in my opinion. If somebody like I was 46 the first time I tried experimenting with any drugs, and that was because I was at a point in my life I'd never touched anything. I'd known many people who had done many drugs, some that were addicts, some that were not, and I decided that I was comfortable in my skin enough that I could try these things so that I could understand what other people were going through. So I had dabbled a little bit here and there, got to know what the sensation was like, and then walked away. And now I have a better understanding.
And what about people like me who started dabbling not out of depression or a desire to disconnect or an inability to associate with people or have fun, but literally tried it because it was there and I was a little bit older and thought, why not?
Yeah.
You only live once.
I would say that puts you initially in the curiosity state.
Mm-hmm.
You're curious about it. You want to know what it's like. So
Yeah.
that makes you started out as an experiment, as a scientist, to understand it and see what it's all about.
And then you realize, holy shit, this is amazing, but you're still not doing it because you're trying to disconnect or run away from problems or feelings or anything. Because when I was using, at least the first time, those were some of the best times of my life.
Yeah, it's fun. It feels
Right.
good. It puts you in a good state.
Right.
But back then, you didn't have something like the Sober Happy Hour to watch to let you to learn from other people's experiences what was going to become happening down the road.
Yeah.
You didn't have, that.
That's true. That is a good point, because had somebody told me that getting off the drugs the first time after probably a year of daily use. And I just kicked it cold turkey. It was miserable, but I did it fully. No help of any doctor or treatment program or 12-step program, nothing. Just gave it up. Had something like this existed to tell me that 90% of people get back into it, and then those people have a supremely difficult time, a much, much, much more difficult time getting off of it the second time, maybe I would have made a different decision, right? And I think that's the service that a program like this can offer to drug users, the curious drug user, the first-time drug user, the long-time drug user, or the sober person who went through that stage in their life and is toying with the idea that, you know what, it's been a couple years since I got off of it. I can handle it now. I know what to expect. I know what I need to do. If I don't do it for more than a few days at a time, I'll be okay. And what was fucked up about it was I had all those thoughts, right? Oh, no big deal. If I do it for less than a week, I can just stop. I won't have the withdrawals, and I'll be okay. And the week turned into convincing myself, what's the difference between 1 week and 2 weeks? And then 2 weeks turned into a month. And then it was, oh shit, I did this to myself, and now I can't just stop. Because if I stop, I'm going to put myself through hell, and I'm not willing to do that. Shit, I'm fucked. So then you start the process of trying to wean yourself off of it on your own. And that doesn't work because then you start making all these very intricate mathematical decisions about, cool, I'm going to have this, one oxy, and I'm going to cut it up into 8 pieces, and I'm going to take a smaller dose today, and I'll take all 8 pieces, but tomorrow I'm only going to take 7 of the 8 pieces. But then you're laying there in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that 8th piece is staring at you, and you're like, I'm not supposed to take this till 8. Ah, fuck it, it's 5. I'll take it a few hours early, and then, shit, I did all 8 again today. Well, I fucked up, so I guess I'll just take this whole pill this time, and I'll start again next week. And then it turns into a month, and then you're ready to try it again. And then I reached out to my drug dealer, right, my pill person, and said, hey, I heard about this new drug called Suboxone. Can you get it? And she could, and she did, and she gave me some because I was ready to quit. She gave me some, but she only gave me like 4 pills. So I took it, and I didn't have any withdrawals. And I didn't have to take any drugs that day, or regular drugs. So then I took another one of those, and I still didn't have any withdrawals. And it was amazing because I felt like I'm making progress. But then the 4th day came, and I ran out. And it doesn't just leave your system, because the receptors are still occupied the same way as if you were taking the regular drugs. So when that dried up after 24 hours and you start feeling the withdrawals, the panic sets in because you know what's coming. So then you reach out to the drug dealer who pretends to be your friend through all of this. They support the decision that you're going to stop, but you're a paying customer. That's not in their best interest to let you stop. So when you reach out in a panic and say, I need some more Suboxone, oh, I'm sorry, I can't get any for a few days. But I have some Percocet. Will that help? And the answer is, fuck yeah, that'll help. Where do I meet you? So then, here you go. 5 milligram Percocet, the smallest that they make. And you take the one just to calm your nerves, and you're right back in that same cycle. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to take the edge off, and then I'm going to break up this other one, and I'm going to do it over the course of a day, and I'm going to wean myself back down, and it just doesn't happen that way. I'm sorry. I tried many, many times.
You're probably one of the strongest people I know. So for you to tell me this really has an impact on how powerful these drugs are.
It is.
You, of all the people I've known in my life, I've never known anybody who has made a decision to do something and didn't do it completely 100% all the way. I mean, you decided you wanted to learn to cook, and before you were even in school, you were watching every Food Network show 24 hours a day, taking notes. You were into it. You are the most dedicated and sincere person at whatever it is that you decided to do. You give it 100%, and you're probably one of the strongest people I know when it comes to that, and you couldn't overcome your addiction.
I had well, first and foremost, thank you. That was a very kind thing to say. And the truth is,
everything that I've seen you do, you've done so well, it makes me sick.
The truth is,
people try to do things and they just can't, get whether it's your music, whether your art, when you're working with me doing Venetian plaster. I mean, I'm serious. I just want to point this out. I've hired in the course of my career probably well over 100 people, and I teach them the basics. Okay, I want you to paint the trim. Okay, simple rules. Don't dip your brush too far. Don't paint more than 12 inches at a time, and don't drip. And you showed up first day wearing your street clothes, no painting clothes, and I gave you those 3 simple tasks, and I said, by the way, your clothes are going to be ruined by the end of the day. And at the end of the day, you did an immaculate job. You didn't spill one drop, and your clothes were still perfectly clean. And I was just like, nobody does that in everything that you do. So I'm not here to try to praise you, but I'm just saying that you are very focused, one of the most focused and dedicated people in whatever it is that you want to do. When you're on drugs, that just goes right out the fucking window.
It's true. Can I confess something to you?
Yes.
I'm going to confess something to you, Robinson.
Okay.
For the very first and only time that this confession has ever seen the light of day. So, that very first day that you had me come to a job with you, yeah. And I remember the pair of pants that I was wearing. I remember the studded belt that I was wearing, the gray V-neck t-shirt that I was wearing, and the beanie that I had on. And we were working with a guy named Mac. Was it Mac?
Mac. M-A-C.
And he was kind of a magoo, but you had been working with him for a while.
Yeah.
And we were working at this lady's house. It was an old house in Berkeley, I think. And I was doing the trim around all of her really old 100-year-old windows. And in order to do the trim, we had to remove all of the hardware.
Right.
Right? And
that was Mac's job.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I I don't remember how many days we were there, but I decided that I was going to, because I had finished early or whatever, you were still working on something in another room. So I decided that I was going to try to be a nice guy, a helpful guy, action oriented, and I was going to put all of the hardware back on the windows. The next day, the woman realized that all of the window hardware had been put on upside down. You had assumed that Mac had come behind us and put all of the window hardware on upside down and told him, Mac, you need to go back there and fix this. Like, this is fucked up. Like, this lady's super pissed over this window hardware being upside down. And there were maybe, a dozen windows. It wasn't that big of a deal. But he was adamant that, no, there's no way I would have put this window hardware on upside down. And I just sat quietly, just listening. And he went back, of course, like on his day off or whatever, and flipped all the window hardware back the right way. And he was like, man, how did I fuck up so bad? I don't remember doing that. And I'm just sitting in the corner like, well, shit, he's doing it. Like, I'm not going to say anything now. So now, 15 years later, I am admitting to the fact that I put the window hardware on upside down, and that crazy guy did a bunch of extra work to fix my mistake.
Nice.
At the time, I probably justified it in my mind by saying, well, shit, that was pretty stupid. And if I admit that it was me, Robinson's not going to want me to come and work with him anymore, because what kind of idiot puts the window hardware on upside down? So I just let him be the idiot. Robinson already thought he was an idiot.
He was an idiot already.
Right, so it worked out.
I assumed he did it.
Yeah. So I never told anybody that. This is the first time ever.
Okay.
So I had every intention of dedicating myself to the process of getting clean, right? Because even in my mind at that time, I still hadn't come to terms with the idea that I was an addict. To me, it was more just a long time, bad decision, and I was going to just stop eventually. But I couldn't. I could not stop. Not because I did not want to, because I absolutely wanted to. To the point where I know that I was probably destroying my kidneys by purchasing the least powerful pills that I could find, because somehow in my mind, just like an alcoholic says, well, I'm only going to drink beer, in my mind, doing the less potent drugs made it less bad. So I justified it. So I was taking, 300 and 500 milligrams of acetaminophen every half hour, which will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to buy something stronger and let myself believe that I had a more serious problem than I really did. And I also had justified it that because I wasn't doing anything more than just the prescription pills that second time around when I was living here, that the problem wasn't as severe as it was when I was in San Francisco. And it's that kind of thinking. It's that kind of justifying. It's that kind of bargaining that really gets you to a dangerous place. So I don't know if there's any truth to what Robinson shared about my willpower or my focus or my dedication or my drive. But what I will tell you is that when I put my mind to something, it takes a lot for me to give up. I am stubborn as all get out. Like I remember when I got my first iPhone and I wanted to jailbreak it, and I sat in front of the computer in that iPhone for 14 straight hours figuring out how to do it, never giving up, and figured it out. And Rachel, we weren't even married yet at the time, basically thought I was a crazy person for having the dedication to sit there for that long and figure something out that was clearly very frustrating, but not be able to stick with my plan to quit the drugs.
Yeah.
It's that powerful. And for anyone listening who thinks, yeah, but come on, like you probably still enjoyed doing it and really didn't want to give it up. There were ulterior motives. There's always ulterior motives.
Or the people who think, yeah, but I'm different.
Sure,
You might
you
be
are
different.
different.
You might be better or stronger, but I'll tell you right now, you are not stronger than addiction.
You're not.
Nobody.
And it took me a long time to come to terms with that.
And this is something that we never talk about. This is
Yeah.
the thing that I'm addicted to, and I can't get myself to stop smoking cigarettes. It's socially acceptable. It doesn't cause problems in your life, except making your breath stink and maybe give you cancer if you smoke too much. But this is an addiction for me that I now have. It's probably the only thing that I've not been able to stop doing in my life.
Which is really funny because how long ago would you say that cigarettes grabbed you by the balls?
I've had cigarettes grab me by the balls many times in my life, but when I make the decision, okay, this is it, I'm stopping, I stop. I go through a couple of days of really wanting to smoke, or even sometimes a couple of years. When I was with Chloe, I didn't smoke for 2 years. And every day I wanted a cigarette. But I just said, no, I'm not going to smoke today. And I didn't smoke for 2 years. And then I started a job somewhere and it was pretty stressful. And I grabbed a pack of cigarettes, or somebody else was smoking and I took a hit, and then it all started all over again. And it's the same process,
It
whether
is.
it's heroin or nicotine. All it takes is one time, no matter how long you've been off of it, one little sample, and you're going to be hooked again. That's all there is to it.
And that is one of the most frightening things in my mind. Because I believe that I gave up drugs and alcohol for the right reasons, for purely personal reasons. But I also know that there have been times when temptation is there, but there are non-personal reasons that come front and center and say, really bad idea. Those non-personal reasons being my wife and my kids and my job and my family and the life that I currently have. A very happy life. So the biggest fear that I have is the world's a fucked up place. And something terrible could happen at any moment, right? My kids could all be in the car with my wife driving down the street and get T-boned by a semi-truck. And now they're dead. then what? You know? Because if you,
then you have no reason to not take your drugs anymore.
and that's the thing, right? That's the most important part of this. Because if you get clean for the wrong reasons, for temporary reasons,
Or for other people.
for someone else, like a girlfriend or a wife, we have over 50% divorce rate in this country. If you get sober for your now wife or husband, there's a 50-50 chance that that person will not be your spouse in the coming years. Does that mean you have a 50-50 chance of relapse?
If that happens, then you probably have about 100% chance of having a relapse, because
Right.
that's what most people do as soon as they get divorced.
I'm going to do everything that I wasn't allowed to do because of that bitch.
Yes.
Right? I'm going to fuck all the chicks. I'm going to watch all the porn. I'm going to spend all the money. I'm going to do all the things that I wasn't allowed to do because of you. And then spite comes in too, right? Where even if you only got sober for your wife, kinda, but you had all these other reasons too, like your job and your money and your car and your house and your kids. Well, your wife's going to take your kids away.
And your car and your house.
Right, she's going to take the house and the car and the money. So now all of your reasons are gone. And you're going to feel spiteful. So you're going to say, hey, remember how you made me give up drugs? Drugs that I was having a love affair with? Drugs that I really enjoyed in my life? Because you don't remember all the bad shit. Just like when you decide you're going to have make-up sex with your ex-girlfriend, you don't remember all the awful, horrible, bad shit that she did to make you feel like a piece of garbage. You just remember the sex that you had. So it seems like a really great idea. And you just broke up with your more recent girlfriend, so you're going to fuck your ex-girlfriend out of spite. Just to make the more recent ex-girlfriend feel like shit. So if drugs are your ex-girlfriend,
yeah,
and your wife wouldn't let you do the drugs, and now you're feeling spiteful, you're going to fucking relapse. If you don't have the right reasons, front of mind, all the time, that is keeping you from that addiction.
I am just so glad, sorry, just sitting here listening to this, that I don't have to deal with this shit. And I'm not talking about the addiction stuff. I'm talking about the relationships shit. I mean, I don't like sounding like I'm, totally down on relationships, but I kind of am, in the sense that what I hear is, okay, great, you're setting yourself up to lose a lot. And I mean, I've had relationships, they've been great, they've been wonderful, but you know what? I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's not worth the rest of my life's happiness, you know? It's not worth my mental health and well-being. It ain't worth it, Having relationships as far as like interpersonal interaction, friendships, all those other things are wonderful, but when you start getting that heavy investment and buy-in, you put so much of yourself into someone else, into their life, man, it seriously screws some people up.
Yeah, you have to make a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, and if I don't have to, why should I?
And
I mean,
the
because
award.
honestly, there's this feeling out there in society that seems to be, if you aren't actively seeking a relationship, if you're not married and you don't have kids, then you're somehow irresponsible and immature,
Sure.
and you don't know what it's like to make sacrifices. Sorry, but yeah, I do. And because family and all that shit isn't the only type of sacrifice things. But it's this idea that if you're just living on your own, living for yourself, that somehow you're some awful, like, immature, irresponsible little freak, And I think that's just wrong.
So I think that that is wrong as well because I look at my aunt. I have an aunt. She's in her mid 50s. She's never been married. She didn't have children. She's successful. She's a psychiatrist and has this big, beautiful house that is this historic landmark in Montana and puts all her extra money into that. But I'll tell you this, something clicked a few years ago. And all of a sudden, she's having a lot of regrets about having not started a family or getting married or doing those socially required things that you're talking about right now.
Hmm.
And are there times in the last 10 years that my life would have been easier without a wife and kids to think about and worry about and do for and provide for? Of course. Of course. I could have gone to that concert in New York City. I could be driving a nicer car, you know?
Hmm.
But it's kind of like I never wanted to get married. Robinson will tell you this. I never wanted to get married, and I certainly never wanted to have kids. Like, kids were not part of the plan. But all of that changed, and it changed honestly, right? It wasn't just, oh, we accidentally had a kid, and okay, well, now I'm a dad. Like, I chose
Hmm.
to instantly be a father. I married a woman with a young child on purpose. And I was going to give you the award for the night's biggest cynic a minute ago, but you're absolutely right though, Chaz. I think there's so much pressure put on us by society that you have 2.5 kids, you get married at now 30,
Well,
and if you
here's like
go
the
ahead.
real injustice to me is the idea of doing that just to do it, just to fulfill that social requirement.
Well, and where do
Because
you think that pressure comes from?
I mean, honestly, I feel it from certain of my family members.
Yep.
I feel it from other people, like, expecting things. It's like, look, some people were even, like, thinking, um, I could imagine them thinking, is he gay or anything? I was like, dude, if I was gay, I'd be just as single. I would be just as down on this stuff too. But the thing is that I think it is better to not get married than to marry someone just to get married.
Or
I mean,
to
to
marry
me,
someone because you were stupid enough to get pregnant.
I mean, really, in order to check that box off of your life, experiences, got married, had kids, you know,
Got divorced.
got
Right.
divorced, living just in that way, this checklist of shit you do when
Yeah.
you go through life, I think is absolute bullshit.
Agreed.
And I
I
think it's
agree.
just a
Yes.
recipe. It is a plan for disappointment and dissatisfaction, and we see it all the time now with this 50% divorce rate. that right there is the failure of the whole storybook romance thing, you know? It's just, I'm sorry, I just gotta, I'm just down on that shit, so,
And
sorry.
I see a
media,
lot of Vietnam too. It's exactly the same story that is told, and there's just as much disappointment and divorce here.
is
Yeah.
in Vietnam, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, it's more just ignorant, but do they still do the Asian planned marriages? The, what do they call them?
Arranged marriage?
Arranged marriages?
Um, I think that's probably done more in the upper class of China
Okay,
and India, but not so much in Vietnam.
got it. Because to Chaz's point, if you're getting married and having kids because you grew up watching Leave It to Beaver,
Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch, and getting married and having kids is part of the American dream, but that's the only reason that you're seeking it. I personally love the people who can be honest enough with themselves to say, you know what? The only reason I'm interested in having a girlfriend is consistent sex with the same person, so you're not at risk for STDs and all that bullshit, and to split the rent, because it's a whole lot cheaper to split it, right? I respect people that have that outlook. I respect your decision and what you're feeling, absolutely. But what was funny was I definitely wasn't ever living the checklist life.
You know, I tell a lot of people here who are always looking for love that there's a simple rule in life about love. The more you look for it, the harder it is to find. When you stop looking for love and start looking inward at yourself and just focus on the things that you enjoy in life and become successful on your own by yourself, love will find you.
And it will be the right kind of love.
Yes.
Because you're not...
And that's what happened with you.
Exactly.
You
I
weren't
didn't
looking
have to
for a family.
compromise.
Yeah. It found you, and she fell in love with you because of who you are, not because of the sacrifices you were making for her.
No. And
That's
what
a
was crazy...
great point as far like, you know, loving you for who you are, not the sacrifices you make for them. I like that.
And marriage is tricky because it is difficult to combine two lives together, right? And I think monogamy in and of itself is a very unnatural thing. That's why there's very few species of animal on the planet that are monogamous, and that's a very different kind of monogamy. This is like some pre-programming in a penguin or in a dolphin that makes them mate for life. It's not... Two bald eagles don't fall in love. They mate for whatever reason, and then...
Procreate. Yeah.
Right. And, oh, okay, what we did turned into an egg, turned into a chick, turned into a bird. That worked. So now I am programmed to seek you out to create a new offspring with you every season. It's not love. Birds don't feel love. My bird loves me because I feed her.
What about lovebirds?
Not even fucking lovebirds.
Okay.
They're liars. You ever met a lovebird?
Not yet.
Yep, they're liars. They're dishonest. And so the human monogamy is, for some people, very difficult and foreign, and they cheat and they lie, and or they repress these feelings of want and desire and attraction because society said you're married, so you can't do those things.
Exactly.
Therefore,
and society tells you who to look for and what to look for and what makes a good husband. And you need to find a husband who won't cheat on you, which is a completely absurd thing because it's human nature to want, to desire, to procreate. It's instinct.
and yet, for me personally, I've never been the type to cheat. Robinson used to give me so much shit in my 20s because he was obviously smarter and older and more experienced than me and didn't understand why this smoking hot chick is throwing herself at you and you won't fuck her because you have some girlfriend who lives 300 miles away? Are you insane? What is the matter with you? And I would tell him, it's just not my style. And he couldn't understand because he knew full well that that relationship would be over in a few months, and I would then lose the opportunity to bang that hot chick. But I've just never been the type to do that, and I would never do that. I told my wife a long time ago, if I ever got to the point where I felt like I wanted to, whether it was as innocent as spending emotional time with someone else or physical time with someone else, if it ever got to the point in my mind where that was what I wanted to do, then I would do you the courtesy of handing you divorce papers before I would go out and do that. Because in my mind, it's just not something that I am willing to do to someone else.
Yeah, and at least having the guts to say, okay, you know, I'm at that point. I'm just going to be honest with it and getting divorced and just leaving.
Yeah, I'm
You
done.
know, I would rather leave someone. I mean, I'm saying
And
rather
that's
leave
why
someone than cheat on them.
I completely respect that in both of you. And this is exactly why when I ended a relationship after 8 years with probably the most wonderful girl I've ever known, I'm sure you remember her well, Beth.
Yeah.
I was working as a body piercer, and really cute girls were throwing themselves at me all the time, and I felt bad that I was cheating on her. And at the end of the relationship, when we said goodbye, I made a promise to myself that I would never cheat again. And every time I met a girl who wanted to be in a relationship with me of any kind, the first thing that I would say is, I don't believe in monogamy. And if you and I get in a relationship, you will not be the last girl I sleep with. And hopefully I will not be the last man that you sleep with. Because to me, sex is just sex. Love is love and sex is sex. They are not the same. They are great when they're together, but they don't always have to be together.
They're
And
not exclusive.
they're not exclusive. And 90% of the time or more, the girl I'm driving her to dinner, telling her this, she's telling me, turn around, take me home right now.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we got this out of the way before I had to spend
that
money.
is very smart.
Before I have to spend money on a dinner and try to invest all this money and time into a relationship where I know myself and I don't want to ever have to go through the pain that I feel or that someone else feels of cheating. It's
Which
just
is
not right.
so I can equate this back to addiction and recovery because, like I said, I've never been an unfaithful person. I mean, maybe I can remember in high school, like, ooh, I made out with the chick that wasn't my girlfriend, whatever, but that doesn't count. I'm talking about a real relationship where I went behind her back to have sex or be inappropriately involved with somebody else. I've not done that. And I'm very proud of the fact that I've not done that. However, I tell people this all the time, that one of the greatest parts about getting sober was being able to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning without the fear of getting caught. There was something so freeing about waking up the next morning, and if you look over to your left and you see your wife looking at you and she's making a slightly awkward face, that I was not immediately overcome by guilt and fear. Holy shit, she knows.
Yes.
Which is
There's nothing to know.
exactly, which is identical to the feeling, I'm sure, of when you're cheating on someone and having to clean up after yourself and having to hide and have separate email accounts and different passwords to your email accounts and you know, telling your guy friend that, hey, if Susan asks, I was at your house last night from 8 to 11:30 and we watched we watched the football game and blah blah blah. We ate pizza.
Now you're getting other people involved in your lives
Right.
and bullshit. Yeah.
It is the most freeing thing to not have those lies anymore. And so, Robinson, I respect the hell out of you for your willingness to put yourself in harm's way to tell somebody. And the beauty of it is, Robinson has had relationships. He has had long, wonderful relationships with people who have agreed and accepted him for who he is. When he's had that conversation and said, I don't believe in monogamy. And that person said, well, I really enjoy spending time with you. I really care about you. And I'm willing to accept that side of you. And then some of them have even been like, well, shit, that sounds pretty cool. I could try that. And then they've enjoyed a lifestyle that they maybe never knew was something that they could enjoy as well.
When I met Chloe, I had that conversation with her, and her response to me was, I'm married, I have a boyfriend, and I have a girlfriend. So I think this is going to work out just fine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And yet, for me, Rachel and I had a separate but equal conversation when we got together, which was, we want to get married. Great. There is almost nothing that we could not overcome in our relationship. And trust me, I've tested it. Trust me. But the
That's what
one
the show is all about.
right, but the one thing that we both agreed in a similar vein that we wouldn't even try to fix would be being unfaithful. That if she were to ever cheat on me or I were to ever cheat on her, the switch is flipped at that point. There is no coming back from that. And these relationships that you see where people, so one of them cheated and they go through counseling and they figure it all out and they stay together and then, but they fucking hate each other because the trust is gone. Every time now that you have sex, you're thinking about the time that he fucked that other chick.
Yes.
And you feel gross and you feel betrayed and all these awful feelings because most men don't have the balls to do what Robinson does in saying, I'm probably going to fuck other chicks. Kind of like Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne filed for divorce after 33 years of marriage, full of unfaithful behavior from Ozzy Osbourne. The guy fucked anything with a hole for
Not even a pulse.
decades. Didn't even need a pulse, just a hole.
Yes.
For decades. And she was fully aware of it. Groupies and hairstylists and probably guitar techs. He was a man whore. Why did she file for divorce after 33 years of putting up with his bullshit?
Money.
No, not money. She makes her own money. She was his manager for his whole career and made 15 or 20% of everything that he brought in. And she now has her own TV show and her own line of whatever. And she's more successful than him now than he ever was.
So why the hell didn't she?
Because he fell in love with his hairstylist.
Love is different.
Because all this time she knew that she was the one he would come home to. And he might fuck that chick and screw that chick and bang that chick and sleep with that woman, but he didn't love them. He didn't care about them. It was sex. But she found love letters to the hairdresser. Emails professing his love. And she said, "That's it. 33 years. We're done. Pack up your shit."
Yeah.
There is no reconciling that.
You know, there's a great deal of power imbalance here in Vietnam. The men have all the control and make all the decisions, and the women are obliged to just be submissive and put up with whatever he says. And as soon as a woman discovers, even if she can't prove it, if she just believes that he has cheated on her, then she's out.
Yep.
She's done. She goes away. And
takes his dick with her.
what I try to express to women is that it's natural and it's normal and it's instinctual for men to always want. And I actually took a survey here. I asked 100 Vietnamese men if you had a girlfriend or a wife that you were faithful to, but you're out of town for a week and you have the opportunity to have sex, knowing that your wife or girlfriend would never find out, would you do it?
Ever.
And all of them said yes. Every one of them said yes. Sure, why not? So what I tell the girls here is, when you meet a guy at the beginning of the relationship, take control of the power by giving him permission to do what he wants under the condition that you never find out. If I ever find out, then it's over. But if you don't ever let me know, I don't care what you do, just don't ever let me find out.
Robinson the Love Doctor.
Use protection so that I don't find out by getting a fucking disease.
Yeah.
Okay? Brush your teeth when you're done so I don't kiss you and taste another woman's pussy. Whatever it takes, make sure that I never know, and we will be fine. And a lot of them, these women, they listen to this and they think that's very logical. And it's kind of like a struggle for them because they're so ingrained with the whole cheating and lying thing. Everyone says don't lie and don't cheat, especially lying. Lying is absolutely the worst thing you can do. But just about every woman I've met has lied to me in some regard because we all lie every day. You know, how are you feeling today? I'm doing okay. When in fact you have a headache or you're pissed off at somebody, but you just say, yeah, I'm doing okay. That's a lie. Or, hey, I have some free time today. Do you want to meet for coffee? Oh no, I've got a really busy schedule. When in fact, she doesn't have a busy schedule. She just doesn't want to meet me, but she doesn't have the balls to tell me, so she lies to me. So I get lied to every day. by just about every girl I talk to.
I get lied to every day
But
because
I
I have
get it.
children.
Yes, of course.
Right.
But but lying is the worst thing that you can do. So it's this really fucked up double-edged sword, and there's simple solution by being logical about it and saying, okay, everybody's going to lie, understand, accept, and learn how to work around it.
Yeah. Because
You can't-
absolute honesty, the world would literally collapse
Yes. it
if
would.
everyone was honest all the time.
Yes.
And when a company is honest, like Lululemon, who makes sportswear for women, turns around and says, we will never make an extra large pair of women's yoga pants because we do not believe that fat women have any business wearing yoga pants. This was a
That's
very
being brutally
honest. This is a very honest statement. Fat
Yes.
women have no business wearing yoga pants. And they were ostracized for saying this. When what was funny was every man that I spoke to completely agreed with them, right? We don't dislike overweight women or men. Doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't make you an unattractive person, I'm sure. But you have no business wearing those pants. And so we aren't going to make them for someone with your body shape. Why does Victoria's Secret need a plus size line? To sell more stuff. And I'm sure Lululemon could make zillions more dollars if they made extra large and extra extra large yoga pants. But they don't believe that that's what they were out to do. And that honesty nearly ruined their business.
They could
So
have just never said that.
Yeah, they could have.
they could have just
never said
ignored it.
that.
Sure. I believe that omission can also be identical to dishonesty. And I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and so much of my life centered around being dishonest by omission when I was using.
Yes.
And the honesty that I'm able to live by now is so much greater than it was when I was using. And it then starts to infiltrate other parts of your life, right? Where you start feeling guilty for things that really don't matter that much, but it's because you're used to being honest now. And just like telling you the story about the window hardware, I could have lived the rest of your life and you would have never known that. But there was a part of me this whole time, this entire time, 15 years later, that felt guilty for it. As insignificant as it was. I
But
lied.
It's not enough guilt to eat you up. It's just a
No.
little thing.
But every once in a while, I would think about it. I would see that kind of door hardware on an old window, and I would think about it, and it would make me feel bad. And it also just makes me feel bad to have lied to my best
Well,
friend.
You didn't lie. You just didn't come forward.
Sure. And I let someone else take the fall.
But he was already fallen anyway, so it was okay. So, and now it feels good to have released that.
It does.
And I tell, if I start a relationship now with someone who I feel doesn't know me well enough to know the dark side of my life, I will tell them when they start asking me questions, I will say, be careful what you ask me because I won't lie to you. And if you ask me the wrong question and I tell you the truth, it will ruin our relationship, and it might be better if you just didn't know.
Ignorance is bliss,
Yes, it is.
right? Like I
Because
don't.
not knowing this dark side of my life will have no effect on
Right.
our relationship. None whatsoever. Knowing will have an effect.
Yeah.
And it will probably be very bad unless you have a dark side too. Then we can share. So
When
haven't
Rachel
found
and I
anyone here.
when Rachel and
Yeah.
I first met, it was probably the first time in my dating life that I didn't ask some of the questions that you ask when you're younger and stupid and don't know any better about previous relationships and sexual experiences and etc. And not knowing is the same as it not existing, right?
Yes.
Unless you start making up your own shit in your mind and you make it worse than what it truly is, then knowing can be better. But there is a maturity that has to exist in someone to understand the logic behind, I don't need to know that about you. I don't want to know that about you. So
Yes.
I'm not going to think about it. You're certainly not going to offer it, and we'll be okay. Like people that want to know the intricate details of a former addict's life of abuse. I'm going to warn you right now. Chances are that that recovering addict did some pretty awful shit when they were using. And if they are not using now, and they have a good recovery under their belt, and you ask, they will probably tell you the truth. They will probably tell you about the worst thing they ever did to get drugs. Like, maybe your 28-year-old white hipster boyfriend decided that he was going to go down on Goldie on the street corner for his hit of crack that day because he didn't have any cash. And now you're just going to think about
Or
a big
Bubba.
black dick in his mouth,
Yeah.
and you're going to wish you never knew.
Yes. Exactly.
So don't ask.
Don't
People
ask.
ask the same thing of folks who are, who have, I guess you would say, neurodiversity or mental illness and things like that. And it's like, dude, you know me already, So no matter what goes on in my head, you already know it. You're already experiencing it. You don't need those intricate details in order to know me fully as a person.
Yeah, those things
You
can
know,
ruin a relationship.
For sure.
they can, and it's like, dude, I just do not need to tell you everything. A lot of people think it's like you have to bare your soul to folks, and it's like, look, I don't need to.
I liken it to a relationship with your mother. Your mother loves you
Yes.
unconditionally,
Unconditionally, yes. But she doesn't need to know everything.
but there is shit she does not need to know.
She can go to her grave knowing that you're a good boy.
Exactly. She doesn't need to know about the time that you stole from her or lied to her about this or did that or fucked that chick in her bed while she was on a business trip. She doesn't need to know any of that. And as good sons, we don't tell them that.
Out of
Not
respect.
because, right, not because we're trying to be dishonest, not because we're trying to deceive, but because
there's no good reason that she should know that.
There's no good that comes from it.
No.
And the same goes for relationships, in recovery or not, that, hey, I am a recovering ex-addict, and that's as far as it needs to go. And like Robinson said, be careful what you ask me, because part of my recovery is to be open and honest about that part of my life. And if you don't truly want to know, don't ask.
Don't ask.
Yeah. relationships are hard. Maybe I envy you a little bit, Chaz. But I will also tell you, relationships can be truly rewarding, but they are also very hard.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not because I don't avoid them because they're difficult or hard or anything like that. It's just I'm not going to dedicate my time, effort, money, resources, and everything to the pursuit of relationships.
Are you
I
actively
think
avoiding it?
I
No,
don't think
I'm,
he is. I think that a time will come in his life when he will meet someone who thinks and feels the same way, and they'll have a connection, and an organic relationship will simply develop naturally.
and I'm totally open to that.
Yeah.
So
You
it's not a
know,
closed offedness.
no, not at all. No, it's just that is not the major driving priority in my life that I see quite often with so many other people, where it's just, that is all they think about is, oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm single. They just have, boyfriend or girlfriend after one after another. They cannot stand to be single because if they are, they have no identity of their own. I'm totally open to relationships or anything. It's just that's not my priority as I see it in my life. I'm talking with me.
And so much. I mean, literally billions of dollars are spent on matchmaking services. They all claim to be able to pair you up with the right person. But the problem is that you are both in pursuit of something that you're not allowing to happen organically,
Yes.
naturally. So yes,
Every
you may
time,
have
every
similar
time I'm,
interests. Go
every
ahead.
time I'm on a dating match site, the only people that I meet that are interested in me are the ones that want money.
Or the ones who are already married or already, they're looking for a way out sometimes.
Well, that's
Note to
okay too.
self.
I mean, if
Yeah.
if a woman is married and just wants to have something extra, I have no objections to that at all.
Mm.
Note to self. Delete Chaz's eHarmony profile. All right.
Yeah. That's money I don't need to spend.
But what's so interesting about this entire conversation is that not many people know me very well. It's not that I'm closed off
Hmm.
to, true, deep personal friendships. I don't have a lot of very close friends. Robinson has been one of those people for a very long time. And I was actually just thinking about this yesterday. The two people, the two male friends in my life that I have been the closest with and am still the closest with were almost unintentionally, but maybe subconsciously, not the people that I asked to be in my wedding. Like, there was a time where I felt like I didn't understand why I didn't ask you, Robinson, or Jeff Patch to be in my wedding and why I chose the people that I chose. But what's interesting is I don't talk to the people that I chose 9 years ago. And it's almost like I didn't have to. I didn't have to make you feel special by inviting you to deal with the stress and the cost and the bullshit of being my friend.
And I understood that.
I
I
didn't
was
even
not
understand that.
I was not in the least way upset or envious or jealous that you didn't ask me to be your best man. I knew that you had other people in your life that you
Right.
were developing friendships and relationships with. I was pretty far away, and I knew that our relationship, especially after the one incident that you and I went through because
Hmm.
of someone else, which really, really seared our relationship and made it much stronger. I knew that nothing matters. I know with a great deal of confidence that you and I will be best friends until the day I die.
And beyond, because I will be alive for many decades longer than you.
Yes, I hope so.
But my point being was that whether it's a friendship relationship or a relationship, the real ones don't require the frosting on the top. And the real ones are the ones where these people want nothing from you except for your friendship,
Unconditionally, yeah.
but would also do almost anything for you.
Yes.
And in a romantic relationship, how often can you honestly say that? Typically, it is about what you gave her or him for her birthday compared to what she gave you. Right?
Yes.
And it's not about the connection and the friendship there. It's about the facade. It's about the bells and the whistles.
Yes.
And with my wife, I prefer to spend my time with her than with the bros.
Well, and that's, to speak to that, Mike, that's exactly why Ray and I have been friends for so long, is because she is exactly that kind of person. And I mean, she and I have been friends since she was 14. Basically, it's pretty much half of my entire life, we've been friends. And if you look at like the way our friendship is between me and her compared to the way some other folks are, it's like we don't feel need ever to like, be all BFFs and, all cutesy and shit like other friends do. It's just comfortable,
Well, then it
it's
also,
just not.
I witness this all the time. Even if Rachel doesn't like to be all by herself, I don't know why. So if I work the whole weekend, it's not uncommon that Chaz will come over and hang out at my house. And it's not like the two of them are sitting at the kitchen table gossiping and
Mm,
painting each other's toenails.
mm-mm.
Chaz might be on the other side of the house watching TV, and Rachel's on the opposite end of the house on the computer, but they enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
Presence.
And I've never felt threatened by that. I've never felt like it was awkward. There was a period of time where I didn't fully understand it. I'll be honest,
Mm,
because I didn't think it would be reciprocated. I didn't think it could be reciprocated, that if I had some, female friend, attractive or not or whatever, that I don't know that she would be okay with that. But it's also difficult because I've had too many times in my life where I thought I had a legitimate friendship with a member of the opposite sex, to find out months or years later that that person is secretly in love with me,
mm,
and the whole thing comes crashing down. And that sucks because I grew up with my mom and my three sisters, and sometimes I just associate better with women.
I do too. I mean, really, it's like I think the two of you are probably like really the only guys I talk to.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Same
I
with
mean,
me.
I just honestly do not relate to men. If I had to choose between spending time with women in an even totally non-romantic anyway, just, who would you rather be proximally near to? I'd always go with women. I'm just more comfortable around women than
We are
yeah.
we are a trio of the least manly men you could think of. None of us give a shit about sports
It's
and
it's
go ahead.
probably my biggest struggle here in Vietnam,
Is
really,
that you're not one of the bros?
because every, every the girls just don't understand that I associate, with I get along with girls better than I get along. I just don't have any male friends anywhere
Yeah.
in the U.S., in here, anything. And and every girl thinks that my best friend here, who happens to be a girl, she's helped me with all of my paperwork for getting apartments and getting my, uh, you know, visas and license and whatever. She's one help. She's my best friend. Everybody thinks that she's my girlfriend or my ex-girlfriend, and we never had anything romantic together. She's
Yeah.
just my friend, and it's so difficult for anyone to accept that. So because of that, they all think that I have this secret girlfriend that I don't
Yeah.
tell anyone about, and it's just
Well, and I've even had male friends ask me about Chaz and be like, so let me get this straight. You let this dude just hang out with your wife whenever you're not around, and you don't think it's because he secretly wants to fuck her. And I said, if I thought that, I would probably have a problem with it. But I don't think that, not because I think Chaz is gay, but because of what Chaz just shared at the beginning of the show. And because I know what it looks like and what it feels like to have a male friend with ulterior motives trying to pretend to just be a friend to my significant other. And it is a very different situation. And you try not to be that kind of boyfriend or husband who's going to be controlling or tell your wife what she can and cannot do. But you know how the male psyche works. And there comes a point where if you don't say anything, then bad shit can happen. And if you do say something, now you're an asshole. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Or you just let it play out until the whole thing blows up in a fireworks display of ridiculousness, like it did a number of years ago with the person who actually was the best man in my wedding, who I I warned her, said, this is not somebody that you want to be friends with because you're female and he's a piece of shit and you're setting yourself up for a really awkward situation in the future. No, 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 no. It's not. That's ridiculous. Just wait, and then blaze of glory. And all I could do was point and say, I fucking told you so. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, addiction being a relationship, a very unhealthy relationship with a drug or a chemical, can feel to the other member of your relationship, should you have one, can feel an awful lot like you're being unfaithful. And I challenge you, the former addict or the current addict, to try and make sense of that. Because a lot of time, especially with women, and I don't mean to sound like a misogynist, But Sharon Osbourne didn't divorce Ozzy because he was sleeping around. She divorced him because he was giving his time and his love and his affection and his attention to somebody other than Sharon. And when you are actively using drugs or alcohol addictively, you are giving your soul to this thing. And most significant others are not going to be okay with that. Not because they're trying to control you. Not because they don't understand you. But because you are literally choosing that thing over them. And that doesn't make them feel good. Nor should it. That's it. We made it. All right.
That was a good show. Hour and
show.
45 minutes.
That was great. So, you've been listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Thank you so much for downloading or streaming or watching or subscribing or however you got to this show. Shoot us an email, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/soberhappyhour. At Sober Happy Hour on Twitter. SoberHappyHour.com is the blog. And if you subscribe on iTunes, make sure that you rate and review. We need more reviews, people. We know you're listening. I have the numbers. Jesus Christ. Don't be silent. We want to hear from you. Chaz Robinson, thank you so much, as always, for your time. Robinson, I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And Chaz, I hope you get some sleep. Any last words, gentlemen?
Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
Amen, brother.
Chaz?
Shit, yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Like I said, shit, yeah.
All right. Well, for Robinson and Chaz, I am your host. We'll be back next weekend, same bat time, same bat channel. And if you or yours is considering getting sober, I highly recommend it.
Thank you, guys.
Later.
Bye-bye.